we're going to talk about a little bit about the applications, but also how he got into the space and what brought him to Web 3. Marek has studied and graduated from the University of Toronto, MIT, and has built already one company called Loku, which he sold to GoDaddy, and then built Sello. So, Marek, before we start, could you tell us, a little bit about you and your journey and how you got into the crypto space?
Yeah, absolutely. And just first of all, thank you guys for being here. It's really great to be here in Ethereal and in Tel Aviv. It's my first time in Tel Aviv, so it's really cool. So I started actually in the original Web 3.0 world. So I was finishing up my PhD at MIT back in 2010 when I ended up starting Loku from inside a class taught by Tim Berners-Lee that was focused on the semantic web. And so a few people here might know this, but Web3 previously was actually the term used to describe the semantic web, which was Tim Berners-Lee's effort to do to data what he had done to documents initially when he invented the web, namely make them open and openly accessible by everyone and interconnected. And so we started a data company that was Loku in the original Web 3.0 space. And so we've been thinking about decentralization a lot from those early days. And so it's only natural that we've been thinking about it again with the start of Sello.
And so Sello is deemed to be a mobile-first Web3 application. Mobile is a reality now. Some reports say that in 2020, there'll be more than 6 billion active telephones and smartphones. How is Sello connected to that, and what do you bring to the table?
Yeah, it's crazy. So this Ericsson mobility report that just came out this summer predicted that by next year, 2020, there will be 6 billion connected to the internet smartphones in the world. So that is a staggering number. And if you look around in the Web 3.0 world, I think there's a lot more to be done on this mobile side of things. I think Web 2 has figured this out, I think maybe sometime around 2011 or 12. Luke Wróblewski famously wrote this book called Mobile First. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend taking a look at it. Web 2 has been thinking about this for a while now, and when they develop new applications, they actually frequently start with the mobile experience before they even think about the desktop or laptop experience. And they start with the mobile one and then scale that up. And so it's, I think, in a way surprising that Web 3.0, which is supposed to be leading the world, is somehow lagging in this really major way behind where Web 2 is today. And so at Sello, we've been thinking a lot about mobile first, and we really want to focus heavily on this use case.
So could you take us through the user journey and the features that are specific to Sello compared to other payment decentralized apps that we see?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Sello's mission is to create a monetary system that creates the conditions for prosperity for all. And so it's in order to reach, I think, the people that we want to have the most impact with, it's only natural that we focus on mobile. And so Sello is a decentralized platform that makes financial tools accessible for anyone with a mobile phone. And to deliver on that, we've done a lot of user testing in the field in a lot of our target markets. And we've done, I think, over 150 in-depth user research interviews, talking to mostly people who are unbanked or people who are without government-recognized IDs. And we've iterated through the traditional product process, learning from them, synthesizing the research, and then coming back to the drawing boards and then building a product. And if you build a protocol in this manner, you end up making, I think, a few different trade-offs than you would if you're just building a new platform where, maybe, you think about, I think, interesting technical challenges, think about scalability, but not necessarily the end user. And so With this approach, I think we've made a number of different choices. I think the first one, I think, which is pretty obvious, is the mobile-first choice. So everything we build is designed to work in a fully permissionless manner directly on mobile phones, directly on Android, primarily smartphones. So this means that we have a really efficient way for clients to sync with the network. This means that we can send payments to phone numbers and not just to kind of complicated public key-based addresses. And since we're really focused on this use case of creating kind of this lightweight bank account experience for people who don't have access to government-recognized IDs, naturally we also have a stablecoin component as well.
So what are the other features that you have in terms of privacy? How do you deal with KYC and other issues that other payment applications face?
Yeah, great question. So Sello is primarily a technology platform, just like Ethereum and other platforms that we know and use. And so we, just like Ethereum, I think the kind of issue around KYC falls to partners and companies that want to integrate Sello into their kind of financial systems. On privacy, I think that's a really great question. Since Sello is primarily focused on being useful as a medium of exchange, I think privacy becomes even more important than, say, in a store of value style currency. And so while we're not doing anything directly right now on privacy, the Sello community as a whole has started looking into ways that it can extend Sello to provide full privacy, maybe Zcash style privacy. I think some of the community members will be talking about some of this in the coming months in some upcoming conferences.
And so could you take us through the payment process with Sello? You mentioned that you have stable coins. How did you structure that compared to existing apps that are out there?
Yeah, so the Sello has a stable coin platform that allows you to create a number of stable coins that are all backed by the same over-collateralized crypto asset reserve. And so this reserve includes a number of assets, including Ethereum, and it's over-collateralized so that even if the underlying assets remain volatile, we're always ensured that there's enough collateral to back the underlying stablecoins. And if you look at the design, it's really a hybrid of kind of what Maker is today and what Basis was looking to accomplish. And I think what makes it unique and interesting is this platform element. So you can launch multiple stablecoins. You can exchange between each of the stablecoins through a Uniswap style exchange that's built into the stability protocol. And so it becomes quite easy to kind of go between, say, Sello dollars and, say, kind of a Sello Filipino peso without having to find a counterparty.
And so, so we went through the payment process. What happens when I want to send, $10 to someone in the Philippines? How does that person recover those funds? How do they sign up?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we actually have some recordings that we can share today. And so this might actually help kind of illustrate exactly what the experience looks like. And so here, we've been dogfooding the app within the company. And so I wanted to pay back my co-founder, Rennie Reinsberg, for a coffee the other day. And so here, I'm just sending him 5 Sello dollars just to quickly pay him back. And so since it's 2019, of course, we support emojis. And because we have a stable component and because we have a way, we have this decentralized PKI that hashes the phone numbers to public keys. It's actually quite easy for me to find my co-founder in my contact list on my phone to send the payment to him. And so if someone is on Sello, then it's actually very, very quick to send a transaction to that person. And I think there's a few interesting things to note here. So, this app synced with the chain really quickly. So I mentioned before, we have a lot of investment put into our light client protocol. So Sello uses a proof of stake ConsenSys protocol. But I think what's really interesting is that we're using BLS signature aggregation to aggregate all of the signatures from all of the validators that are participating in the protocol. And then I think more critically, we're using a fairly new, pretty interesting curve called BLS 12377 to perform that aggregation, which allows us to run snark-based proofs around the signatures, which then allows us to construct very small proofs that can validate the entire set of the chain. And so this means that when you open this app and you want to transact and you want to see what your balance is, you can actually connect in a fully peer-to-peer manner, in a fully permissionless manner to the network, simply by downloading one of these small, oftentimes around 600 byte snark proofs, which then proves that the latest header that you receive is part of the chain, which then allows you to start transacting. And so this experience that we just saw here is one that anyone can experience once they sign up, even if they've just opened the app, even if they've never synced with the chain before. And I think that's really, really powerful because it allows us to do all this without trust, without requiring kind of centralized services that you connect to and that you trust.
You mentioned that it was a proof of stake. Is it possible for me to lend my Celo Gold or USD? Can I get interest? What are the other applications besides straight payments that Sello offers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So since it is a staking, proof of stake based protocol, I think naturally it's possible to earn rewards by securing the network, by locking up, in our case, Celo Gold. Celo Gold is the reserve asset, but it's also the staking asset. And so by locking it up and voting for validators, you can, like with most proof of stake protocols, you can earn some rewards. We're also working hard on a mobile first DApp SDK, which we launched earlier this year, which allows anyone to build native mobile applications that operate as dApps. And so we're really excited to be working with a few third-party companies to build kind of new and interesting experiences. I think if you think about some of the really kind of compelling and exciting dApps that we've seen, especially on Ethereum in the DeFi space in the last couple of months and years, there's a lot of, I think, excitement around them, and especially around getting those into the hands of people who don't have access to banking and other financial services. And so by taking this mobile-first approach, we're really hoping that we can bring those things like Compound, letting people earn 10% interest on stable coins that they hold, getting that into the hands of people who have smartphones but don't have access to financial services. And I have a little demo that I could share that kind of shows what this SDK and in general what you can build with these mobile applications. But before I do that, I wanted to share just another thing that kind of follows this. And so here it was really easy to send a payment to Rene, but what if someone isn't on Sello? I think that's probably the more common use case and the one that we really worked hard to support. On Ethereum and Bitcoin, you can't actually send a payment to someone until they create their public-private key pair. And one thing that we're really proud of is the ability to actually support that flow. And so I can kind of show what that looks like right now. So here I'm paying Satoshi back. She bought me tickets for a conference earlier this summer. And as you can see, the flow looks very similar. Just find her in my contact list, write a little message, and then press invite. And I think instead of sending the money to her address, since she hasn't signed up yet, the money goes to an escrow smart contract that is locked and only redeemable once she verifies this phone number. And so we can actually secure the funds in a way that is much more secure than if I sent her kind of a secret kind of code in a side channel. And it allows for a pretty unique experience that I think from kind of a go-to-market and just generally kind of adoption point of view makes it much, much easier to use Sello. And so after sending that payment, I generated an automatic text message that I sent her. It includes a link to the Play Store as well as an invite code. And so what does it look like for her to redeem those funds? So she gets the text message. She clicks on the link, installs the app. It's already installed in this case. Enters her phone number. Then we create the private public key pair. We put that in the trusted execution environment of the smartphone. We copy paste the invite code in that text message. And this invite code is pretty interesting. So it actually encodes a wallet with just a few cents of Sello dollars on it. And this allows her to pay for gas for the verification process. And so there's just a couple of cents, 6 cents on that wallet. In Sello, you can actually pay for gas using arbitrary ERC20 tokens, including our stable coins. And then with that, she can pay for the verification process. And so here we are getting paired up with a number of randomly selected participants in the protocol who then send cryptographically signed text messages to her as she's signing up. The phone, being that it's Android, can automatically read these text messages and then resubmit them to the protocol, which then, with high probability, proves that she has access to that phone number. And once she's done that, that's reflected on chain, and she can use that proof to then redeem the funds directly from the escrow account. And so, really, in just a few kind of taps, I can invite someone onto the platform and I can send the payment while doing so. That payment can be in stable value. And throughout this whole process, we've abstracted all of the crypto away. The only real crypto was maybe that invite code. But again, we've used an idiom that people know and understand, so they don't even have to think about that. And the end result is a lightweight bank account experience that's fully permissionless. It syncs with the network quickly without trusted third-party nodes, and works really well on your mobile phone.
So I have a last question. Congrats. I have a last question, but I want to give the audience the opportunity to ask any questions if they have one before we conclude. Sure. So when they did their user testing, were there specific countries and emerging markets that resonated more and were more relevant for the testing?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we did user testing in markets where I think there's a lot of need for something like this, but also in markets where people recently have gotten access to mobile money, like M-Pesa in Kenya. And we really wanted to see, what M-Pesa did right to be able to get such adoption quickly, and then also why things like M-Pesa are not growing and getting adopted in other countries. And so we have a whole team that's been thinking about all of this. It's actually run by someone who was running, he was a country director for Give Directly in Kenya, and he was actually running the biggest kind of universal basic income kind of program in the world. He's naturally very data driven, and so we've also been kind of mapping out a lot of different countries, looking at what are the kind of factors that make something like this work in those markets. Access to data, smartphone adoption, the price of data, the amount of people who don't have government recognized IDs, the amount of people who don't have access to financial services. And using all of that, we've kind of identified a bunch of, I think, interesting markets that we think this could have a lot of impact in.
So maybe just as a follow-on in your user testing, how did you analyze a situation where there's low access to data? And have you found some solutions? Everyone's looking for a solution in that space.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, some of the user research that we did was in very remote places in the world. So, we were invited with the UN by the UN World Food Program to come to Western Tanzania to actually work on a pilot with them in a refugee camp called Niragusu. And there we've met a lot of refugees who don't have access to financial services, don't have IDs, but do have smartphones. And the thing that we observed is while they do have access to smartphones, data rates are pretty high. And even though we can sync with the network very, very quickly, many people just keep their data off entirely for whole days. And so we've been exploring ways of doing offline transactions where one party is online. So I think the case where this is interesting is if you're going to a merchant and you want to transact, but you don't want to use your own data. Just like when you pay with a credit card, you're not expected to have that credit card connected to the internet. You expect the merchant to be able to connect. And so we've been exploring experiences around that.
So we have 1 minute left. I would like to know where you are in your roadmap, and also where do you see Sello in the next 3 years?
Yeah, and so we've been actually working on this for 2 years, mostly under the radar. We wanted to really build out the protocol and share it with people before really talking very loudly about it. And so, this is the output of those 2 years. And so this app is actually available for you to install in the Play Store. We're running our kind of our alpha public testnet since the summer. And we've been inviting validators to come and help validate the network and help secure the network. And so you can already play with this today. We're in the process of auditing all of this work. We have over 5 audit firms that we've been working with, and they are kind of helping us make sure that it's ready for launch. And then we're gearing up to launch our first kind of incentivized testnet, which will be something that will add some sort of kind of game mechanics to help incentivize people to join and start running validators so that we can, at launch with a fully decentralized kind of secure network. And so all that is happening this fall. Hopefully we'll be able to launch early next year, but it all depends on how things go with the audits and with the launch of the testnet.
And if I'm a developer and I want to build on the Sello protocol, how do I get involved?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you go to docs.sello.org, you can learn more about the protocol. And you can also learn about our mobile-first SDK. We actually have one final demo to show. So this is just a test application. We built a saving circle application. So saving circles are ways that people save and lend out money to kind of small communities in places where you don't have access to financial services and generally banking. And typically a bunch of people kind of pull together some funds. They each put in money every week until they hit some goal, and then they each take out the whole pot one by one until everyone's had a turn. And you can adapt this so the people who take the money at the end put a little bit less money in, and the people who take money out at the beginning maybe pay a little bit more. So there's, in effect, a way of kind of either earning interest or paying interest to get access to loans. And so it's pretty simple, but it's a common idiom that people understand. And so we wanted to build a mobile version of it using our mobile SDK, which is a native app. So we believe that dApps should be native apps. And it uses a Sello wallet over here to approve transactions. And so there's a whole API for doing that. And this is just running on repeat. And I think the thing that is particularly exciting for me is the list of names that we see here. These names are actually being pulled from your contact list on your phone, not from the chain. So by having this PKI that maps hashes of phone numbers to public keys, we can actually build social experiences that don't require people putting their names and other kind of personal identifiable information on chain. And so if you want to create kind of a social dApp that's a native application that is easy for people to install and syncs really quickly, then I highly encourage you to check out our mobile SDK. Again, you can learn more about it at docs.cello.org.
So you're telling me you're building the first decentralized social media platform.
Yeah, you could call it that. So I think we're a little over time, but maybe I'll just end with one kind of interesting thought. We were talking about this earlier. Like, what is the biggest social network out there in the world?
Facebook.
So a lot of people think Facebook, but I personally believe that it's actually Facebook is likely smaller than the collection of all of our contact lists sitting in our pockets that collectively create one big decentralized social network. And so this decentralized PKI is really designed to tap into that decentralized social network. And we hope that people kind of use our SDK to build these kinds of social network-based experiences in a fully decentralized way.
Thank you so much, Marek, for your time.